the front that wouldn't move. In the endless mud of eastern Ukraine, the front lines have barely shifted for months. Each side dug deep, building walls of steel, concrete, and fear. But behind the silence, both armies are cracking. The Russians, once confident, now exhausted, are fighting not for victory, but for survival. Their supply lines are thin, morale is fading, and commanders whisper of chaos spreading through their ranks. On the other side, Ukraine's soldiers face their own limits. Many have fought since the first day of the invasion. They carry the weight of fallen friends, of sleepless nights, and of promises made to families far away. Yet, amid the exhaustion, there's something stronger, a belief that this war can still be won. Winter is coming again, and with it, the final chance for movement. Kiev knows that time is not on their side. Ammunition is running low, Western support is uncertain, and every decision now could define the outcome of the war. As the frost begins to bite, a single question hangs over the battlefield. Who will break first, the invader or the defender? Whispers of collapse. Across the Russian lines, strange rumors began to spread. Entire battalions disappearing overnight. Commanders refusing orders. Units fighting each other for food and fuel. What once was the mighty Russian war machine now moved like a wounded animal. Slow, unpredictable, dangerous even to itself. In intercepted radio calls, Ukrainian intelligence heard voices trembling. Soldiers begging to be rotated out. Complaining of broken equipment, no winter clothing, no hope. Some units hadn't been paid in months. Others were commanded by officers too drunk or too afraid to lead. Inside the Kremlin, reports of chaos were buried under propaganda. Moscow claimed the front was stable, but insiders knew the truth. Morale was collapsing, and desertion was quietly spreading. Meanwhile, on the Ukrainian side, the army's leadership watched carefully. They didn't just see weakness, they saw opportunity. The war had become a chess match of patience and timing. If Ukraine could strike before winter's deep freeze, the Russian lines might shatter completely. And so, plans began to form, covert meetings, supply movements, intelligence briefings. A new operation was taking shape. It would be risky, costly, but perhaps the only way to end the war. In the dim light of a bunker, a Ukrainian commander whispered to his men, "We don't get a second chance. This is it, the final push." The plan in motion. In a hidden command post near Kramatorsk, the plan was finally unfolding. Maps covered the walls, each red line representing months of blood and sacrifice. Ukraine's commanders had chosen their moment carefully. They would strike not where Russia was strongest, but where it was weakest, along the southern corridor, near Tokmak. Intelligence had confirmed it. Russian reinforcements were late. Logistics stretched thin, defenses riddled with gaps. It was a narrow window, maybe a few weeks at best. But if they broke through, the entire southern front could unravel. Orders were whispered, not shouted. Convoys moved only at night. Drones hovered silently, scanning for weak spots. Soldiers were told little, only that something big was coming. The mood was tense, half fear, half hope. For many of them, this wasn't just another battle. It was personal. They had lost homes, families, entire cities. Some had nothing left but the fight. As dawn approached, the first units began to move. Artillery batteries loaded their shells. Infantry lined up in the cold wind, faces covered with frost. A young Ukrainian lieutenant wrote one last note to his wife before stepping out. "If we succeed, maybe the world will finally believe we can win." Then he folded it, placed it in his jacket, and joined the march toward the unknown. First contact. The night before the assault, the front line was eerily quiet. No artillery, no shouting, just the sound of wind moving across ruined fields. Soldiers huddled inside their trenches, waiting for the signal. They knew what was coming. Everyone did. At exactly 4 a.m., the silence broke. A wall of fire erupted from Ukrainian howitzers, shaking the ground like thunder. For the first time in months, the front moved forward. Drones soared above, transmitting live coordinates to gunners. Precision artillery cut deep into Russian fortifications. You could almost see the Russian soldiers scrambling, unsure where to run, unsure who was still alive. But for the Ukrainians on the ground, the advance was brutal. Mud swallowed their boots, shrapnel cut through the night. One squad was caught in open ground, their commander wounded, but they kept moving. Every meter gained came at a cost. Still, something had changed. The Russians were no longer the hunters, they were the hunted. Their radio traffic revealed panic, their defense lines folding faster than anyone expected. By dawn, Ukrainian forces had taken the first trench network outside Verbov. Smoke and fire covered the horizon. One soldier, exhausted but smiling, said to the camera crew nearby, "We waited a year for this moment. It finally feels like we are the ones pushing forward." That single sentence summed up the mood of an entire army. The Russian trap. As Ukrainian forces pushed deeper toward Tokmak, something felt wrong. The maps looked promising, but the silence on the Russian side was unnatural. No counterfire, no visible retreat, just emptiness. It was a silence that every soldier learns to fear. By midday, drone feeds revealed the truth. Russia hadn't abandoned the sector. They had set a trap. Hidden bunkers, mine corridors, and pre-sighted artillery lines were waiting for Ukraine's advance. When the first armored column crossed a narrow bridge, the ground erupted beneath them. The lead tank vanished in a cloud of smoke. Seconds later, missiles rained down from concealed positions in nearby tree lines. Chaos followed. Radios crackled. Orders mixed with screams. But even amid the confusion, Ukrainian commanders didn't break. They switched tactics, small unit flanking, drone-guided counterfire, evacuations under smoke cover. It wasn't about who fired more shells. It was about who adapted faster. By evening, the smoke had cleared, revealing a haunting scene: burnt-out vehicles, torn flags, but also Ukrainian medics carrying survivors back from the inferno. One exhausted commander whispered into his radio, the counter-adaptation. War, at its core, is a race of adaptation. The side that learns faster survives longer. After the ambush near Tokmak, Ukrainian commanders refused to repeat the same mistake twice. Within 48 hours, the front changed. The advance slowed, but intelligence deepened. Every drone, every radar, every intercepted Russian call became part of a living map. Instead of armored pushes, Ukraine began a different kind of offensive, one built on precision, patience, and data. New drone units were deployed with AI-assisted navigation, capable of striking from unexpected angles. Artillery strikes became surgical, hitting ammunition depots and communication towers with pinpoint accuracy. The Russians, once confident behind their minefields, suddenly found their supply lines cut and their electronic jammers burning. In one intercepted call, a Russian officer screamed, "They see everything." How? The answer was simple. Ukraine had learned to think like a network, not an army. Every soldier, drone, and artillery gun became a node in one vast digital brain. And slowly, the trap that Russia had built for Ukraine began to collapse on itself. By the end of the week, satellite imagery showed smoldering Russian positions and empty trenches. The hunters had become the hunted again. A Ukrainian analyst summed it up best. "We are not fighting a bigger army anymore. We are fighting a slower one." Breaking through the silence. It began quietly. No grand announcements, no breaking news. Just movement. At dawn, after days of steady reconnaissance, Ukraine struck again. But this time, it wasn't a frontal assault. It was a whisper, a precise, coordinated breach designed to slip through Russia's defenses without alerting their artillery. Small Ukrainian units, supported by drones, crept across open fields under thick fog. Every meter was mapped, every sound measured. Then, at 6:13 a.m., the silence shattered. Explosions rippled through Russian trench lines as kamikaze drones dove from the mist. Infantry followed within minutes, cutting through wire and bunkers that had stood for months. The Russian defenders were caught completely off guard. Many never made it to their firing positions. Communications collapsed as Ukrainian jammers flooded the frequencies. By noon, a section of the first Russian defensive belt had fallen. For the soldiers who lived through it, the moment didn't feel like victory, it felt like relief. Relief that the months of waiting, bleeding, adapting had finally led to something real. A Ukrainian sergeant radioed his commander. "We are through." Repeat, "We are through." They didn't even know we were coming. That sentence echoed across the line, proof that persistence, not power, had broken the silence of the front. Collapse of the first line. By the second day, the fog had lifted, revealing the wreckage of Russia's first defensive line. What once seemed impenetrable now lay in ruins. Burnt-out bunkers, shattered minefields, trenches filled with abandoned weapons. For months, Moscow had bragged that these fortifications would hold forever. They lasted 48 hours. The breach spread fast. Ukrainian infantry poured through the gap, marking each captured position with yellow-blue tape. Drones circled overhead, confirming clear paths for armored vehicles to follow. Russian soldiers were seen retreating in disarray, many dropping radios and weapons as they ran. The once organized defense had turned into chaos. But victory came with a cost. Casualty evacuation points overflowed. Medics worked under constant artillery fire. For every kilometer gained, lives were lost, and everyone knew it. Still, morale was different now. For the first time in months, Ukrainian troops weren't surviving, they were advancing. One soldier told a journalist on the scene, "This ground doesn't belong to anyone. We earn it with every step." Satellite images later confirmed what commanders already knew: the Russian first line had collapsed. The door to Tokmak was open, but beyond it, darker challenges waited: deeper trenches, heavier mines, and a desperate enemy with nowhere left to run. The hidden front, Ukraine's silent saboteurs. In the dark fields of occupied Ukraine, far from the front lines, another kind of battle unfolds. These are the silent operatives, saboteurs, engineers, and partisans who strike where no army can. They cut communication lines, blow up railways, and vanish before dawn. Their actions don't make the headlines, but they shape the war's rhythm, one explosion, one disrupted supply line at a time. Since early 2024, Ukraine's intelligence service, the GUR, has intensified these shadow operations deep inside Russian-held territories. Fuel depots in Crimea erupt in flames. Ammunition trains derail mysteriously near Belgorod. And factories tied to Russia's war effort find themselves engulfed in sudden firestorms. The message is clear: nowhere is truly safe. This invisible network, often made up of locals under occupation, operates with surgical precision. They are not soldiers, but patriots who risk everything for a free homeland. Their courage reminds Europe that modern war isn't fought only by tanks and missiles. It's fought by minds, by will, by unseen hands that refuse to surrender. Each act of sabotage weakens Russia's grip. Each destroyed bridge delays reinforcements. Each whisper of rebellion sparks fear inside the Kremlin's intelligence rooms. The southern gambit, Ukraine's advance toward Tokmak. South of Zaporizhia, the battlefield stretches endlessly, open fields, scorched by artillery, where every meter costs blood. Here lies Tokmak, a small city with enormous significance. It's the key to Russia's entire southern defense line, the gate to Melitopol. And beyond that, Crimea, Ukraine's southern offensive, launched in the summer of 2024. Wasn't a storm, it was a grind. Slow, methodical, deliberate. Every advance meant clearing minefields, cutting trenches, and enduring wave after wave of counterattacks. But behind that slow movement was a deeper strategy: to stretch Russia's reserves thin, to force them to defend everything and control nothing. Satellite images began to tell the story: Russian fortifications crumbling, command posts abandoned, and desperate troop redeployments from other fronts. Ukraine wasn't chasing headlines. It was dismantling an entire military system piece by piece. The soldiers called it the meat grinder. The world called it too slow. But to Ukraine's commanders, every meter gained meant a crack in Russia's wall. And by autumn, that wall began to collapse. Russian drones filmed their own trenches being overrun. Ukrainian armored columns pushed closer to Tokmak's outskirts, their blue and yellow flags fluttering in the smoke. For the first time, Crimea felt vulnerable. This wasn't just a tactical victory, it was psychological. The myth of Russia's southern fortress was shattered, and as the dust settled, one truth became clear. Ukraine's patience had become its greatest weapon.